family. You don't get to pick the one you get. Just gotta love the one you got.
The first trailer for Final Destination Bloodlines proved to franchise fans that this new movie was going to be borrowing from the series of novels. We broke down in a previous video on this channel how Bloodlines may be reinventing some of those ideas to push a new narrative. There are currently 6 novels, a comic book, and an unreleased 7th installment that we're going to get into in today's video. We're skipping over the novelizations of the first 3 movies because I feel like the only things we're going to be doing there is analyzing some of the differences from book to novel, which, yes, there are some. Maybe I'll do that in another upload, but today's video is all about what Bloodlines could potentially take from the novelizations to reinvent. The original novelizations, I should say. So what other ideas will Final Destination Bloodlines borrow from these novels to reinvent, push their own narrative here in a brand new movie? Well, let's get into it. Hey everybody, I'm KillJoy Jake, and this channel is about to be Final Destination Central until this new movie comes out on May 16th. Now, originally, I was going to review all 5 of the movies on this page separately in individual videos. I don't know if I have enough time to do that now with the movie coming up so close here, but I will be reviewing all 5 movies in one big video coming out sometime soon. Stay tuned for that big ol' nasty video, it's on the way here. Getting into this video a bit here, the Final Destination novels were mostly released in 2005 from publishing company Black Flame. Oddly enough, the company would close its doors on April 25th of 2008, just a few years after these stories were released. It's no wonder that the movies have already borrowed ideas from these stories, because the novels have played around with the mythology more than the films themselves. Getting into the first Final Destination novel that was released, it was subtitled Dead Reckoning. The plot description here reads, when the nightclub that she's been performing in collapses, killing everyone inside, Jess Golden is more than a little freaked out. She'd seen the whole thing happen in a vision only moments before. Already under suspicion from the police, Jess is implicated even further when the other survivors start dying mysteriously. As the death toll mounts, a twisted plan is hatched so that Jess and her friends might live, a plan that may ultimately place them in further danger. Dead Reckoning is pretty faithful to the movies in terms of formula, but there are a few ideas here that I could see being reinvented for Bloodlines. There's a quick scene featuring a homeless man who sort of predicts the next 2 deaths. He gets the order wrong of a girl and then a boy, but yes, a boy and a girl do die in the next scene. This makes me think that there are more people in this universe tuned to the Reaper's frequency, kinda like this guy. Many fans are questioning how Iris Campbell, the old lady from the trailer, has been able to escape death for as long as she has. Maybe Bloodlines will explain that some people in this universe can just see the clues that death is coming a little better than others. There's also a scene where Jess, the punk rocker who had the premonition in this novel, has a dream where she visits an ethereal realm where the souls of the dead reside. She has seen everyone who has died so far, as well as Death himself, taking on the shape of a shifting pile of corpses. Now, while I love this visual, it feels a little too Freddy Krueger for the Final Destination franchise. This series is certainly supernatural, but way more cynical than something like A Nightmare on Elm Street. If you're trying to make a Final Destination film that feels very akin to that original tone, I don't think it would indulge in such a fantastical visual like that, even though it is pretty cool. The next novel that was released was subtitled Destination Zero, but we've already covered that extensively in this video here and how it connects to things we've already seen in Final Destination Bloodlines. Give that video a watch. Now, if you've seen every Final Destination video on this channel so far, this is completely brand new territory. We have not mentioned this third novel yet, which is subtitled End of the Line. This one is about a group of international students who are expecting to live the wildlife on a cultural exchange trip to New York, but soon find themselves the only survivors of a horrific subway crash. A young doctor treating the victims tells the students that they were meant to have died in the wreck, but they just dismiss it as an idle fantasy. When the group starts dying in bizarre and grotesque ways, it slowly becomes apparent that darker forces are at play. From the plot description alone, you can maybe guess that Final Destination 3's ending was kind of taken from this novel, but it gets even weirder than that. There's also a scene in this one where a character is killed by an overflowing bathtub on the floor above in a hospital. This scene almost verbatim is featured in the 2009 film The Final Destination that came out only a few years after this book's release. So basically, the film franchise has been borrowing from the novels for decades now. It's not so crazy to assume that Bloodlines will be following suit. End of the Line also features an interesting finale featuring a secondary antagonist. Kate Shelley is a nurse who plays a dangerous game, injecting herself with succinimethonium. The drug temporarily causes paralysis and is typically used for general anesthesia. Why am I making this sound like the trailer for an awful 2000s comedy? Let's get back to this. For whatever reason, Kate injects it into herself and sees how long she can run before the effects start to kick in. When she inevitably passes out, the oxygen machine used to keep her breathing fails, and it temporarily kills Kate. Once a new oxygen tank is placed in the machine, she's resuscitated, but not without a messed up new ability. She can see when people are about to die. There's even an entire subplot in the book about how she sees a mobster who's about to die, tries to save him, but ends up getting herself in the mix. Some of the subplots in these novels are crazy, man. That Destination Zero has one about Jack the Ripper, like what? She tries helping out all of our survivors knowing that they should be dead just upon seeing them, but unconsciously is an instrument for death. That bathtub we were talking about earlier, it was her fault technically because she gave the patient there too much medication. They fell asleep. This works as a little twist in the novel, and although it feels kind of messy to me, I really like the idea of having a secondary antagonist in these movies. Final Destination 5 tries its hand at something like that, and it's pretty cool, but I still think the best use of a secondary antagonist in any of these stories is without a doubt Looks Could Kill. We covered that novel in a previous video as well. Once again, give this a watch if you have not seen it yet. Next up is Final Destination Dead Man's Hand. This one follows a couple, Allie and Thomas, that drunkenly get married in Las Vegas despite some issues in their relationship. The next day, Allie has a premonition of a terrible elevator accident and she takes steps to stop it from happening. Allie and 4 other people survive the ordeal and cheat death. There's also a really cheesy tagline from this one that reads, "In a town where the odds are always in the house's favor, can Allie hope to beat the Reaper in this game where she's drawn the dead man's hand?" That tagline should tell you everything you need to know about this one. Probably my least favorite story I've read about from this entire franchise so far. I guess the Las Vegas backdrop is pretty cool, but besides that, there is hardly anything to write home about here. Besides the super dark ending, there's a genuinely awful twist at the end of this movie where Allie is the final survivor. Months after her husband dies, she gets a phone call from her doctor saying she has a horrible case of HIV that will likely lead to her death. It is incredibly bleak and sucks the fun out of this series that should be fun. This is a gut punch idea that I just don't think works for this particular franchise. The only real positive thing I can say about this novel is that it has a stronger focus on the FBI investigating the premonition character over some of the other novels. This is an element that really hasn't been present with this series since the first 2 installments. And even when it is introduced in the later films, it's undercooked at best. Take Final Destination 5 for example. I was rewatching Final Destination 5 for all of this coverage we're doing here, and I completely forgot that there's an entire subplot regarding a detective character. It hardly does anything for the story and it feels very out of place, which sucks because I love it when it's done in the first couple of movies. The original film features the survivors all having completely different takes on Alex Browning's premonition, like Miss Luton, who literally says he scares the hell out of her. Clear Rivers practically acts like he's a god, and Todd's father thinks he's responsible for the death of his other son. Then there's the FBI, who thinks that Alex is responsible for the deaths following the plane crash. To me, it's less about the idea of the cops actually investigating the character with the premonition. It's more so about everyone being involved with the accident who survived having completely different takes on what actually went down. Getting detectives or the FBI involved is just a cherry on top. Death of the Senses is another novel we've talked about in a previous video, so for the last time, I promise this is the last time we're bringing this up, check out this video here if you want to learn more about that specific novel. So technically, we've covered the 6 original novels in the Final Destination series, but there is a 7th novel that was never published. Based on the plot description, it seemed to introduce some new mechanics to Death's design that I found really intriguing. Titled Final Destination Wipeout, this novel takes place in Hawaii, following 2 eager gothic surfers named Raven Blackthorn and Kim Rochelle. While at a beach party, Raven has an ominous premonition that a private plane will crash into the beach, killing several people. She manages to save herself, Kim, and a few others, but soon enough, a soldier by the name of Corbin Wainwright hears about Raven's premonition. Having cheated death once himself after escaping an ambush in Afghanistan that killed his entire squad, Corbin knows the price that must be paid and starts working down his hit list. This novel was never published, so all we can really do is speculate, but it does sound very similar to one of my theories regarding Final Destination Bloodlines. Iris Campbell is seemingly the last survivor of the tower collapse and might know how to defeat Death's design in order to live a full life. Maybe this Corbin character is in a similar situation into Iris, but rather than having a family to protect, he's just trying to steal as many lifespans as he can to once again narrowly escape Death's icy grip. And let me tell you, I love the secondary antagonist thing here. Like, yes, Death is a force that is coming for us all, but can we also have a killer in there trying to steal lifespans from other people? That is such a cool idea. Now, I've been talking about the Final Destination books for like a month here now, but the biggest comment I have gotten in that time is about the comic book Final Destination Spring Break. It is a really odd read in my opinion. The Spring Break story starts off with Carly, her boyfriend, and a bunch of her friends flying off to Cancun. The premonition this time around happens while the plane is in the air, kind of playing with your expectations a little bit. Especially if your only knowledge of this franchise is just the first movie, you're thinking that plane's probably gonna explode. Not this time though. Carly foresees their hotel exploding that night after they land and can't shake the nervous feeling she has for the time being. After a much longer time than usual in this franchise, sort of breaking the flow and formula, Carly freaks out and gets her friends outside of the hotel. It then, of course, goes up in flames and blows up. I guess we could look at Final Destination Bloodlines and say they're doing something similar to that, with the fact that the premonition here is happening in the late 60s and affecting characters in present day. But that feels like a stretch to me. This comic is more so answering the question of what if Flight 180 landed safely in Paris? How would that change the story? Anyways, it's the bizarre twist ending from Spring Break that is totally worth mentioning. After everyone meets a destination that's final, Carly begins to cry. She looks in a mirror and sees a shaman she visited earlier in the story who says that she's the reincarnation of Ixchel. I think that's how you pronounce that. Itzel. It's Itzel, like schnitzel. Itzel, a jaguar goddess of ancient Mayan culture. She represents the cycles of life and death, turning this story into a metaphorical sucker punch. The shaman says she must vanish like her people before her as she fades away out of existence. What? Yeah, I don't think that's how Bloodlines is going to end. With all of that being said, there is a ton to chew on regarding what Bloodlines is going to actually borrow from the novels or not. The film series has already borrowed stuff like Final Destinations 4 and 5, and Bloodlines seems to be borrowing ideas especially from Destination Zero.
Death is coming for our family.
Hey everybody, before we wrap up today's video, please make sure to subscribe to this channel for more horror movie theories just like this. If you don't, I'll crap my new pair of jeans and I really can't afford another set. Please just subscribe so I don't shit myself in the Walmart parking lot again. Also check out my gaming channel GullGotha if you want to watch me live out my childhood fantasy of owning a gaming YouTube channel. So far it's going pretty okay. Please subscribe so we can hit 1,000 subs. Which idea from which Final Destination novel do you think will get reinvented for some sort of scene in Final Destination Bloodlines? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you all for watching, please subscribe, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.